They insist existence is hard and unchanging. It simply is. Yet quantum inquiry murmurs another revelation, one that overturns our former view of dominion. Existence does not occur to you. It unfolds through your attention to it. Consider a person you might recognize. She felt stuck, despite relentless effort to transform her life. Or nothing seemed to alter identical partnerships, identical salary, identical emotional cycles. She journaled, she imagined outcomes, she pleaded with the cosmos for a signal. Each dawn, the same edition of existence awaited her like a repeating cycle she could not escape. Then one evening, in the stillness between thoughts, she stopped forcing things. She only watched. Not from expectation, not from dread, but from presence. Within that presence something started to loosen, not the outside world, but the way she related to it. She ceased trying to produce results and began to notice in a new way. That instant is the hinge. People overlook a simple fact: existence is not a fixed film playing before you. It is a quantum mixture of possibilities, probabilities that solidify into form the moment you notice them. Bring science into view. In the famous double-slit demonstration, researchers uncovered a nearly mystical result. When quantum light or matter passed over two slits, they radiated like waves, unfolding in many directions and revealing multiple potentials. But when those same quanta were watched, they ceased behaving like waves and collapsed into particles, into matter, into shape. The act of watching altered the result. Let that sit with you. A single look compressed the wave of potentials into one measurable outcome. Now move out of the lab into your daily experience. Every thought you entertain, every verdict you hold, every expectation you clutch, these are acts of attention. When you fixate on something with intense feeling, you compress one version of existence into your world. So when you view your finances with dread, your body with contempt, or your bonds with suspicion, you are not merely observing truth, you are helping to form it. You are anchoring a timeline that matches the frequency of your gaze. This isn't about assigning guilt, it's about power. If your attention contributes to shaping existence, refining the quality of that attention expands what's possible. Not because the cosmos favors you, but because your noticing aligns with a new probability that already exists. The field constantly offers alternatives. You only receive those you are ready to perceive. Most people, however, see through filters, past wounds, inherited stories, cultural conditioning. They aren't truly observing, they keep projecting the same scenes. That leads to a key misunderstanding about manifestation. You are not here to fabricate everything from zero. You are here to observe precisely, from love rather than lack, from expansion rather than contraction, from awareness rather than assumption. The moment you stop reacting and begin witnessing from sovereignty rather than survival, you access the observer effect deliberately. Mystics and scientists have been pointing to this for decades. Your inner landscape is not simply a mirror of outer events. Your outer circumstances mirror the inner observer. Change your way of seeing and you change what you draw in. See through peace and chaos begins to soften. See yourself with compassion and old labels loosen their grip. Yet this requires bravery, because seeing differently asks you to release the comfort of being right about your limits. It requires discarding familiar pain and surrendering the illusion that things just happen to you, stepping instead into the responsibility of frequency. You don't attract what you wish, you attract what you repeatedly behold with emotional conviction. So here's a doorway: begin noticing what you notice. Then ask, is this way of looking producing the future I desire or the one I dread? In the quantum field, the cosmos answers not only to deeds but to attention. If you doubt that consciousness matters, you haven't yet grasped the observer effect. This is not spiritual metaphor. It is one of the most astonishing findings of physics, and its consequences touch every aspect of your life. Once you grasp what occurs when a particle is measured, you cannot pretend your attention is neutral. Each time you look, you are composing reality. Return briefly to the double-slit setup, the foundation of quantum strangeness. Researchers fired electrons singly at a barrier with two openings, predicting each would pass through one gap or the other and register predictable marks on a detector. But when the electrons went without being watched, something remarkable emerged. The particles behaved like waves and created an interference pattern, implying each electron went through both slits at once. A condition we call superposition. With a detector placed to determine which slit an electron used, the interference pattern vanished. The electron behaved as a particle, going through one slit or the other. Observation altered the result. Awareness collapsed the wave into a particle, into matter. This overturned expectations in science and revised our grasp of the nature of existence. Particles do not decide their reality until measurement, until consciousness engages. Without observation, only potential exists. With observation, potential becomes form. This becomes intimate. You are not a passive onlooker, you participate. You continually measure existence with your attention, and that measurement shapes what arrives. Step from the lab into the ordinary. You awaken, check your phone, think about your balances, your relationship, your health. You might feel a tightness in your chest or that old knot in your gut. These are not mere reactions to surroundings, they are acts of attention. You are viewing your life through emotional memory. Just as in the experiment, your observation collapses reality, not toward novelty, but toward familiarity. You lock in the same rhythms and experiences not because they are immutable, but because your noticing is automatic. Here's the crucial point. The observer effect applies not only to the tiny constituents of matter, but to every thought, belief, and assumption you carry. You view existence through lenses that emit frequencies. The field, the intelligent vibrating sea of probability, answers with uncanny precision. If you watch life through scarcity, the field returns scarcity. If you watch through mistrust, it arranges scenarios that validate that mistrust. What looks like proof might instead be feedback, not punishment, not destiny, but coherence. But your observation is not simply a camera, it is a magnet drawing the version of existence that matches your vibrational gaze. To transform your life, you don't need to accumulate more, you need to see differently. A version of you who is abundant, secure, beloved already exists in the field as probability, until you begin to perceive it emotionally and energetically with your whole presence. Shift your gaze and that version starts to collapse into form. Healing, then, is not fixing, it is clearing the lens. It is removing the haze of old wounds, inherited narratives, and obsolete identities that tint your perception. The instant you shift from observing from fear to observing from awareness, new timelines emerge. You don't need a physics degree to practice this. Ask yourself, what am I seeing? How am I seeing it? What is my energy contributing to this moment? Everything alters when you look. So how you look matters more than you were told. We were taught to view existence as something external and fixed, but in truth it is a living conversation between you and the field, a dance of energy and awareness. The more awake you become to what you are collapsing, the more creative control you reclaim. You don't need to rewrite the universe, you need to change the frequency of your attention. The field waits for your awareness, not your effort or your struggle. When that awareness shifts, nothing remains the same. It's easy to think the cosmos is deaf when nothing seems to change. The deeper fact is this. For you have been collapsing the same timeline repeatedly without realizing it, not out of intent, but because of how you observe. People live inside cycles of inner repetition, the same feelings, the same assumptions, the same expectant frequency. They look at life through their past and wonder why the future appears identical. In the quantum field, nothing repeats unless you reselect it, and you reselect it every time you perceive through the same emotional lens. Consider abandonment. If someone you loved departed long ago, your nervous system remembers. The memory lives in your body. Later, as you enter a new bond and consciously say, I'm open, your energy, however, scans for cues of leaving. You don't watch neutrally, you watch defensively, with a low suspicion. You collapse reality through that suspicion, and then something occurs to confirm your fear. Your ego proclaims, I knew it. But what happened was not inevitable, it was observed. It was unconsciously chosen by the frequency of your gaze. This is not blame, it is liberation. Once you see how you have been collapsing experience, you can stop being trapped by it. Consider money. Each time you check your balance and your stomach tightens as you think, there's never enough. You are not only noticing digits, you are observing with a lack frequency. That repeated observation becomes a magnet for timelines of financial strain. The field is not punishing you, it answers the emotional tone of your attention. That is why so many read the books, practice the meditations, and recite the phrases without seeing change. The quantum field doesn't react to words alone. It responds to your energetic baseline, the dominant vibration you hold when no one watches. That baseline is formed by what you see and how you witness it. The trap deepens the more you observe the same reality, the truer it feels. And the truer it feels, the more convinced you are that alteration is impossible. Thus loops form. Observation creates reality, reality reinforces emotion, emotion hardens observation, the cycle persists. How break free? Not by fighting the loop, but by observing differently. Replace frustration with attention. Swap reactivity for witnessing. Exchange repetition for reframing. The real transformation isn't what you look at, it's the frequency from which you look. This is the work, changing the lens rather than the external scene. Ask new questions. Which part of me is watching this moment? The inner child or the embodied adult? Is my attention soaked in fear or rooted in possibility? Realize your outer life is the trailing edge of inner perception. People aren't arriving randomly, they mirror the dominant signal you emit. Your body doesn't only respond to circumstances, it reflects the inner observer. From that place you can shift timelines. The instant you stop choosing from the past and begin seeing from the frequency of your future self, new routes open and opportunities appear. Not because they didn't pre-exist, but because your gaze was not a match. You are not failing to manifest, you have been faithfully collapsing the version of existence that fits your emotional blueprint. Spiritual, now you are waking to that pattern. Once you see it, your power expands, you no longer react to circumstance, you intentionally select what will occur. You stop declaring current results as immutable truth and begin observing from the frequency of what is becoming. The universe hears every observation you make, not judgmentally, but resonantly. If you want a different life, stop seeing with the same eyes. Change your gaze, cleanse the lens, and most importantly, embody the version of you who watches through love, full trust and expansiveness. The quantum field is not personal, it is exacting. Alter the frequency of attention and the architecture of your world shifts. There is a subtle moment in awakening when you understand that changing your life does not start with more doing, it starts with observation. Not trying harder, but seeing deeper, without old narratives, without criticism, without alarm, with presence. How you see determines what emerges right now. Your field, the energetic space within and around you, is full of waveforms of potential, countless timelines, and outcomes awaiting your attention. But desperation collapses fewer doors, precision opens them. Presence, emotional alignment, vibrational clarity. These are the cues the field answers. That is where we begin. Find a quiet place. You need little more than your body, a breath, and the willingness to observe without armor. Sit. Let your spine lengthen as though your whole being remembers how to rise without tension. Close your eyes softly, not to flee, but to shift inward where true observation occurs. Place one hand on your heart and the other on your belly. This is your center of feeling, your core of truth. Breathe, inhale through the nose, hold briefly, exhale through the mouth. Drop your shoulders, loosen the mind's grip, let the load you carry, the urge to solve everything, dissolve into the floor. Now tune into the field around you. You may not see it with sight, but your body knows it is present. This space is conscious, reactive, alive, and listening. Bring into awareness a situation that feels stalled, a desire you've struggled to manifest, a problem that resists landing in form. Let it surface without force. Notice not what you've done about it, but how you have been observing it. Do you view it with frustration, fear, impatience, or doubt? Feel the energetic shape of your gaze. Now shift. Breathe and imagine this circumstance as if you were already on the other side, as if resolution had arrived and the version of you who has moved through it is watching from trust, peace, and love. Notice your body, the chest softens, the mind quiets. Your field responds because you are no longer observing from resistance, you are observing in alignment. You no longer collapse the old version, you select a new one. In that vibration, a different future becomes available, not because the circumstance instantly changed, but because your perception did. Hold that observation. Don't attempt to control outcomes. Don't chase results. Simply be the calm, present, certain observer. Let the field register your shift. Creation begins there. From frequency rather than force, from becoming rather than making. Embody the version of you who no longer feels the need to push. Breathe deeply once more. As you exhale, open your eyes gently, not to return to what was, but to re-enter as a new observer. Let this practice become habitual. Pause, sense, reframe, see through the lens of your next timeline instead of the last. The finest upgrade you can make is the quality of your gaze. Write in the comments, "I observe with new eyes." Let that declaration act as a bridge to the field. Your digital words encode frequency. You are not merely a character in this narration. You are the consciousness composing it. Observation by observation. Observe with wisdom, courage and love, and watch your world rearrange accordingly. Many don't realize they react more than they create. Their nervous system is primed to predict, scanning, defending, anticipating. Even when people claim they want novelty, their baseline vibration remains tied to old reflexes. Yet there exists a subtle, potent space where genuine quantum change begins, where reacting halts and witnessing starts. In that calm, non-reactive awareness, timelines bend. The field does not answer drama, it answers depth. Depth does not arrive through chasing, proving, defending, or fixing. It emerges when you become still enough to watch without interference. Be clear, this is not passivity. It is precision. React and you fuse with the trigger. You collapse into the emotion of the past and lose your frequency to the reactivity. In that state, your observation is no longer sovereign. It is survival-driven, defensive, projecting, urgent. You fight with reality and feed what you oppose. Observe neutrally, but indifferently, but from inner steadiness, and you create a gap. In that gap, the field recalibrates and possibilities reopen. Energy reorganizes, not through force but via presence. Non-reactive awareness is unfamiliar for many. It requires unlearning, tolerance for not knowing, and emotional literacy to feel without collapsing into feeling. It's the skill of saying, "I see this. I feel this. I do not have to become this." Most never mention that the more you sit in that stillness, the truer your field shifts become, because you are no longer pushing against the current. Or you allow the field's intelligence to respond not to fear but to your frequency. When a hard conversation appears and you observe instead of defend, you hold a higher vibration. When money tightens and you witness fear without spiraling, you anchor abundance. When plans unravel and you breathe instead of panic, the field repositions you. This is not spiritual bypassing, it is spiritual mastery, choosing alignment over the ego's reflex, staying anchored in your chosen reality, even as the present one tugs you back. The outcomes may read like miracles, but they are merely the field delivering what you have been energetically requesting, once it finally has the room to do so. Power rests not in fixing but in allowing. The shift does not come from pursuit, but from witness. Cease collapsing into emotion and begin collapsing into awareness, and the field will take the cue. It reorganizes to your new coherence, ceases echoing old loops, and begins amplifying your elevated signal. Manifestation quickens, not because you have forced it, but because you stepped aside. So when you feel the impulse to react, control, or explain, pause. Breathe. Observe the sensation. Hold your gaze. Remember, stillness is not powerless, it is the birthplace of power. You are a creator, thoughts become things and energy attracts. All true, but only when you comprehend the observer's role. You are not merely someone wishing for improvement. You are the seer through whom answers arrive. See your pain not as evidence of fault, but as an invitation to look deeper. View delays, detours, and closed doors as signals refining your frequency rather than indicators of rejection. When you alter how you look at the world rearranges itself around that new gaze. This explains why timelines collapse when you stop forcing, why manifestations accelerate when you cease striving, and why the right people, ideas, and opportunities appear when you stop proving and begin being. You become an architect of existence the moment you choose how to look. That repeated choice becomes your baseline, your default frequency, and the timeline your body, mind, and field begin to trust. Trust is everything. The quantum field does not reward effort, it answers coherence. Coherence naturally emerges from observation anchored in truth rather than panic. This is how you step into the next level of existence, not by trying harder, but by becoming still enough to hear the signal. Become the observer to whom life responds rather than the reactor life controls. If you want to go deeper, there's an offering. The eBook Awaken Your Quantum Power, not merely a manual but a transmission, a vibrational bridge from where you are to the version of you who already moves in conscious harmony with the field. Inside are 7 transformative shifts that alter how you observe, how you vibrate, and ultimately how you live. It is for those finished performing, finished waiting, finished chasing. For those ready to observe like an architect and receive like a magnet. You'll find the link in the pinned comment. No pressure, only presence. If it resonates, it is already meant for you. You were not placed here simply to endure existence. You came to consciously collapse the version your soul selected before you forgot. And now you remember, now you notice.